Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It is so good to be back. It is so good to see everyone. I hope you're doing amazing. It is great to be back. So what can we talk about today? Of course, as always with the video game industry, there is plenty of news. Probably the biggest breaking news that just went on last night was that Crystal Dynamics is joining the initiative to co-develop Perfect Dark for Xbox. This was pretty unexpected, I would say, especially this particular studio. So we can talk about what that means, what we think. Is this a good choice? How did we get here? Etc. etc. Of course, also there was a pretty big Nintendo Direct yesterday where we finally saw Bayonetta 3 after years and years, right? It seemed like this game was pretty much vaporware for a while, but we finally saw it. They have finally shown Bayonetta 3, and then there was, of course, the Kirby game announcement and some other stuff, so we can talk about the Nintendo Direct, if we think it was good, if it was a big hit, or whatever you want to talk about. Any video game industry news you want to talk about. So for anybody, if this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, basically the way this works, this is a show, it's a stream, completely driven by you, your comments, your questions. I get to as many as I possibly can, and we talk and break down all of the news in the video game industry. Now, there's going to be two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there is the free method. You just type a question, it pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. However, if you want to 100% guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that is going to be the super chat option. Type in a donation of whatever you want, it alerts me, and then I hop to super chats immediately. Now, of course, as always, don't feel pressured, don't feel obligated to donate in super chat. That's just a way to help support me and support the channel. I also get to tons of free questions as well. Alrighty, I think we should be good to go, right? That's our highlights, and let's start diving in. I don't think there's any real housekeeping notes. I was on Sacred Symbols Plus with Colin. That was a really cool experience. Tons of positive feedback afterwards, to be honest. I wasn't sure how people would feel about the episode or not. You never know. That was probably the biggest platform I've ever been on, and tons of positive feedback. I mean, I've gotten so many DMs and comments from people saying they really enjoyed my chat with him. So if anyone did watch that, thank you so much. If anyone's new for following me from being on there, thanks so much. And if you haven't seen it yet, you can check it out. I was on Sacred Symbols Plus. All right, let's start rocking some questions. We've got two super chats right off the bat, so let me hit those really quick. Timmer72299 with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Timmer. With Fallout 76 making more money than it cost to make, I've been told, do you expect another multiplayer Fallout game by Bethesda Game Studios or ZeniMax Online? Great question, Timmer. You know, will we get another like full-fledged, like just specifically built for multiplayer like 76 was? That I don't know. But one thing I will say, Timmer, I won't be surprised if you see them start to incorporate co-op more often in their games in the future. Whether that's going to be, you know, Fallout 5, whether that's, who knows, maybe even Elder Scrolls 6, right? I would not be shocked. People have been asking for co-op options in Bethesda games for a very long time, and it's never really happened until 76. Now, of course, I fully expect something like Fallout 5 or Elder Scrolls 6 to be completely playable single player 100%, right? That's kind of the DNA of their RPGs. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see that co-op option introduced. I don't know that for sure, but you know, nowadays so many people do play games online. So many people like to play games co-op. It would not shock me at all. Will we get another Fallout game like 76 was, completely built from the ground up? It's like literally meant to be a multiplayer experience. That I don't know. If it was to happen, I think it'd be quite a while. I think their current game plan is to just keep supporting 76 for a long time. If you notice, they keep announcing new DLCs for it and things like that. So I think they're going to just keep working on 76 and doing updates on that for probably years to come. It's made a lot of a turnaround from whenever it was originally launched, right? That game was a mess, and I've heard it's pretty good actually nowadays. So probably just stick with 76 for a while, but don't be surprised if you see co-op in Elder Scrolls 6 or Fallout 5. Wouldn't shock me at all. And thank you for that super chat, Timmer. Frostbite Slash with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Frostbite. I think it's strange that a AAA dev owned by another pub is developing with the initiative. Been seeing comparisons online, but this is completely different to getting help from an actual outsourcing studio. Okay, let's start diving into the whole Perfect Dark situation. So I 100% agree, Frostbite Slash, in that I think the comparison to normal outsourcing situations, it's just not the same here. And give me a second, okay? So do I think that this instantly spells bad news for the initiative or Perfect Dark, like some people are trying to spin this? I would say not at all. Here's the thing. The initiative is still a small studio. They were founded in 2018, but they are still under 100 devs. As last I heard, I think they're somewhere in the 70s. That's just not enough people to make a giant AAA game nowadays, right? It's just really not. It's enough if you want to make, an AA game or like a mid-range game. But Perfect Dark, I think we are all expecting this to be a full-fledged AAA experience. And you're just not going to get that done with 70 people. In fact, it's hard to get it done with 100 people, right? You usually, for these modern, big AAA games, you're looking at 200, 300, and sometimes even more. So the fact is, we always kind of knew that there's just no way Initiative is going to make Perfect Dark completely on their own unless they started rapidly expanding. We're talking double and tripling in size, which seemed kind of unrealistic this far into the project. So I think we all were expecting there's going to be a lot of outsourcing on Perfect Dark. However, it is definitely a different situation than you normally see to see another studio, like you said, it's a AAA dev and they're owned by another publisher coming in mid-project. Now, it's not super unheard of to partner with a dev that's owned by another publisher and have them just completely make a game for you, right? You actually see that. I would say it's not the most common thing in the world, but it's not super uncommon either. We just had Halo Wars 2, which was developed by a studio underneath Sega. I think it was Relic, if I remember correctly. So this isn't like the most unheard of thing ever. Like, this never happens. The part about it that is like different than normal is that it's like a co-development, right? Like, you have the initiative fully on this project, their entire staff, and then you also have this other studio coming in that's not first party, Crystal Dynamics, coming in after this game has somewhat been in development for years, and now they're coming in. I think what basically this comes down to is that the initiative needed a lot more resources than they had. And so they went for a big studio and one that's really established, right? Most outsourcing teams, whenever you're outsourcing work on a project, they might be doing a lot of art for you. They might be doing, just some, there's a lot of different things they can do, but it's usually more of like a supplemental thing, right? The core studio is doing the vast bulk of the work, and then the outsourcing studios are just helping build upon that. This, to me, seems like it's probably going to be way more of a co-development. That's kind of why I've been using that word, because Crystal Dynamics is so big, right? It's such a big established studio. I have a feeling Crystal Dynamics is going to be doing a lot more work on developing Perfect Dark than a traditional outsourcing studio would. I think that the initiative at the end of the day is, of course, probably still going to have the main say in how this game works, the main core ideas, the core concept. That's what they've been building for these last few years. But I think it's going to be way more of a co-development in terms of Crystal Dynamics doing a lot of legwork here, right? They're a bigger studio than the initiatives. If the initiative is, they are more, they've been around for, years and years and years. The initiative's a brand new studio. It's a lot of veterans. But yeah, it's definitely not the same thing as just a normal outsourcing. So I think our main takeaway here is, like I said, the initiative flat out, they just didn't have the resources to make this game by themselves. And so that's why they pulled in a really big studio. The interesting thing here as well, though, on top of this, so far we've been looking at it from the initiative's perspective. We also have to consider Crystal Dynamics' perspective. This spells to me that Square Enix probably didn't have something for them to work on next. Avengers, overall, clearly, I think we can say hasn't been a big success. And Tomb Raider right now is still on ice. So Square Enix might have been in a position where they were like, we don't really know what we're going to have this team do next. They were approached by Xbox, and boom, here we are. So keep in mind, the studio head of the initiative has a history with Crystal Dynamics. In fact, he used to work there. So there's also that relationship. So it probably felt like a good fit in that way. Lots of experience with that team as well. So it's interesting. Yeah, I would not say it's Doom. Everyone needs to calm down in terms of Doom talk. But it is somewhat unprecedented, or I would say uncommon, the way it's happened. But whenever you start to look at all of the aspects of it, it starts to make sense. And I'm sure there's going to be a ton more questions about this. So that's kind of just my overarching thoughts. And I'm sure we're going to get into a lot more of that. So thank you so much, Frostbite Slash, for that 10 super chat. Benji here with a 5. Hi, Benji. Thoughts on the evolution of the direct format at Nintendo? Thoughts against Sony and Microsoft? Who is doing it best? Well, I think Nintendo has the best form of these in terms of just like flow, like really rapid, still kind of popping up and talking and then bouncing out really fast. They've been doing directs for so long. Keep in mind, they were doing directs like in a consistent manner before Sony was doing their states of plays, before Microsoft was doing their kind of one-off Xbox. What were they calling that? Inside Xbox. Now, it's a little bit different than whenever we're talking about the big showcases, right? I mean, I thought Microsoft's last E3 was amazing. I thought this last PlayStation showcase was amazing. But Nintendo does seem to have it down the best in terms of just quick, rapid flow, boom, 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 boom. I thought this last Direct was good. It didn't like 10 out of 10 for me, but I thought it was like a solid 8 out of 10. There was some really cool stuff there. Keep in mind, this isn't like their big E3, Direct. It's just another random Direct. They do several of these a year. So for that caliber, I thought it was a pretty good showing. Now, was it my favorite Direct ever? No. Did I think it was better than the PlayStation showcase that just happened? No. Do I think it was better than Microsoft's E3? No. But again, this was just kind of one of their random Directs. I thought overall it was pretty good. I think the one that is doing it the worst in terms of like regular, consistent updates, I think is Xbox. Now, again, I thought this last E3 was great. But if you look at some of their other streams and presentations they've had, I don't think they're as strong as Sony's States of Plays or Nintendo's Directs. So I think Microsoft actually has the most ground to make up there in terms of like their consistent presentations. But I think they made a really nice improvement this last E3. So that's a sign in the positive direction. But yeah, Nintendo I think has the best down. All right, super chats are clear for now. Thank you so much, everyone, for those super chats. Let's start diving into your free questions. The Deadly 8. Don't you think if Microsoft continues to acquire more developers and publishers alongside Tencent, it will lead into the industry consolidation? Isn't publisher mergers unhealthy for the industry? Meaning, couldn't these big mergers and acquisitions lead into shrinking the industry diversity and creativity? Could Microsoft monopolize the industry? It's a great question, Deadly 8. So here's the thing. Microsoft is still really far away from a monopoly. I know that they are buying lots of studios. I know the Bethesda publish was a massive deal. But when you look at the overall size of the industry, when you look at how many different publishers there are out there, how many different developers there are out there, all the way from indie studios to AA studios to AAA. Now we're even talking about quadruple A games. They're just nowhere close, right? They're not even the lead console in market share. So I know people get really worried about that, but Microsoft still has a very long way to go before they would start to look like a monopoly, right? They would have to start, I think they'd have to buy another publisher and a ton of devs, like multiple devs still, before you start to be like, whoa, this is starting to get a little suspect. Now, the overarching question, though, Deadly 8, outside of Microsoft, just talking about industry consolidation in general, and is it a risk? Somewhat, yes. Now, I kind of talked about this a bit on Sacred Symbols when I was on there. I think that buying dev studios and things like this is just inevitable, especially the phase we're at in this industry right now. You just saw someone from Sony. I can't remember who it was. It was somebody in their film department. So not even their gaming side, but it was their film side. And he just did an interview and he was talking about how, yeah, movies are kind of consolidating too. For example, you just saw Disney buy Fox, which was for a lot more reasons than just movies, but they acquired one of the major movie studios in Fox. Basically, he was saying, yeah, it's happening in movies, but he thinks gaming is actually the next industry that's going to face massive consolidation. And he's talking about how Sony's in a good position to be part of that. So I expect PlayStation to buy more studios as well. So I think buying studios, whatever, it's inevitable. It's a thing that's going to happen. I've talked about this before. As things like subscription services become more and more important, you're going to see more and more consolidation because you need more and more content for those services. So whether that's Game Pass, whether that's PlayStation Plus, whether that's PS Now, having exclusive content drives subscriptions. And of course, that also drives install base and a whole bunch of things. But you need that content. So I expect more and more consolidation to happen. But the thing that's the biggest risk to me is if we see more publishers get acquired. That's the spot where I start to be like, ooh, this could get dangerous. If we get down to a scenario where, let's say somebody buys Ubisoft. I'm not even saying it's Microsoft. I'm saying, what if it's EA? What if it's Take-Two? If you see someone buy Ubisoft and you see somebody buy, Techland or whatever, if you saw someone buy Take-Two, that would be a scenario where I'd start to be like, ooh, this could get dangerous. Publisher consolidation, I think, is the much bigger risk than people going out and buying independent teams because there is enough big house publishers out there to compete with one another that you don't really get to monopoly scenario. But if you get down to we're down to 3 major publishers, maybe 4, that gets risky. Yeah, that gets dangerous. Couple super chats. Let me hit those. Let me see. We did. Cameron O'Neill here with a 5 super chat. Hey Benji, why do you think Nintendo software is able to sell so well over the long term without any price drops, unlike Microsoft and Sony? Cameron, this is an amazing question. This is an amazing question. And it's also a great point. You do not, flat out, you just do not see the vast majority of Sony games and Microsoft games have the kind of legs that Nintendo does. It's not comparable, right? Especially, I would say, on the Switch. You saw this in the Wii generation and the DS as well. But Switch in particular has been a first-party software monster. And as you note, Cameron, the thing that makes it really crazy is that they do this kind of legs, and that's without really dropping price, right? It's pretty rare you get those Nintendo price drops. There's a lot of factors. First of all, I think part of it is the fact that everyone just knows they don't drop price. So people just buy the games anyways, right? With Microsoft, with Sony, we've kind of been conditioned to expect those big price drops. It just always happens, right? Same thing with Bethesda, same thing with EA, same thing with Take-Two. Their games just don't hold value. So consumers are already conditioned from years and years of being exposed to this, that those games are going to drop in price. Nintendo has been doing this for a very long time where they don't drop price. So you just kind of get used to it. It's very rare, right? It's considered like a great deal usually if you find a Nintendo game that's $15 off or $20 off is a big deal. Let alone like you see on Xbox and Sony where you go $30, $40 off. That's almost unheard of for Nintendo games. Very, very rare. So I think that's part of it. It's just consumer conditioning. People are just, right? I think another part of it is Nintendo does make games that appeal to a wide range of consumers, something that Microsoft and Sony still quite don't have, right? They have elements of that, but Nintendo makes games by and large that are appealing to all age groups, all types of people, right? If it's Zelda, anybody plays Zelda, from little kids to adults. Same thing with Mario, same thing with Donkey Kong, same thing with Kirby. I mean, I could go down those, Animal Crossing. I mean, we're talking about games that are designed to hit huge quadrants of people. If you look at PlayStation and Xbox, a lot of their games are M-rated, which, I mean, we know the average age of gamers has gone up in recent years, but still, you know, that is, no matter what, somewhat going to limit your scope. And yeah, I think those are all elements. But I would say the biggest number one is just consumer conditioning. Thank you for that super chat, Cameron. Kevin Kanye here with a 5 super chat. Hope all is well. How are Nintendo's fall and holiday releases looking? OLED, Dread, Diamond, Pearl. So with Switch right now, there's definitely evidence in the West that it is slowed compared to last year. And my opinion as of now, unless OLED's a huge hit, which could be, and we don't know how many they're going to ship, but my opinion right now, at least, is I think 2020 was the peak Switch year. I think each year we're going to go down from 2020, right? I do believe 2021 overall worldwide is going to be a decrease from 2020 for Switch. Mostly because of the West. Japan right now is still very competitive. 2021 might actually be bigger at the end of the year than 2020 in Japan was for Switch. But I think globally, I think in the West it has somewhat slowed down. OLED will help that, but I still just think overall it's going to be down from last year. But keep in mind, down from last year is still a monstrous year in hardware, right? If they are down, it's not going to be like a ridiculous drop. It's just going to be, you know, a bit down from last year. So in terms of hardware, down a bit from last year, but again, this is not a big deal. Switch has been on the market for years now, and it's, I mean, just a ridiculous success. It still has years of life ahead of it. Even if it's slowing, it's going to be a slow taper, right? It's not going to be just a catastrophic fall, like kind of what we saw from the Wii, right? Wii was a massive success, but it was pretty front-loaded. It fell off hard. I don't expect that from Switch. I think we're just going to have years of slow declines. And in terms of the software, Dread is looking really good in my opinion, both in terms of quality and in sales. I have a feeling that's going to be the best-selling Metroid game of all time. I feel pretty dang confident in it, actually, unless somehow reviews come out and it's like terrible. If this comes out and it's like a 50 Metacritic, well, you know, I'm going to change my mind. But as long as this is even decent, best-selling Metroid game ever, in my opinion. And Diamond and Pearl remakes, I don't know how to feel about it. I think that they will be probably bigger than like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. But, you know, definitely not as big as Sword and Shield was. So that's kind of my range. Somewhere in between there. Exactly where that falls, I'm not sure. But between Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and Sword and Shield. Somewhere in the middle there. Is how I'm feeling for Diamond and Pearl. So overall, a huge holiday, right? They have a massive holiday coming up. And next year particularly looks pretty amazing for them, right? Next year you get into that other Pokemon game I can never pronounce the name of. You get to Splatoon 3. You get to that 3D Kirby game. You get to Zelda. I mean, next year for software for them looks amazing. But this holiday, I would say not like the most mind-blowing holiday in terms of software releases, but still very good. Very good. All right. Thank you for that super chat. Let's get back to free questions. Hamishly Ford, back to some initiative stuff. Thoughts on Initiative Crystal Dynamics partnership? I think it's only positive, but people say it's a negative thing. Honestly, I love Tomb Raider trilogy. Well, here's the thing. Crystal Dynamics is definitely a talented studio, and I agree with you that I really liked the actual Tomb Raider reboot games. Not everyone did, right? Some people really didn't like those games. Avengers, to me, was kind of a misguided idea from the start, right? Like, I feel like that should have never been some games as a service game. I just think from the very beginning, conceptually, that was probably a mistake in how to handle that franchise. So I actually don't really put that like a huge negative stamp on Crystal Dynamics for that either, outside of the concept, right? I just think it was a mistaken concept, not necessarily in terms of execution, but you can argue that as well. But I just think that game never should have been what it was. So Yeah, I think in terms of Crystal Dynamics themselves, in terms of talent, I think it's fine, right? I think it's definitely good. So I don't see that as a negative in terms of that context at all, at all. And again, I feel like most of the concepts here are going to be coming from initiative, right? Don't get me wrong, Crystal Dynamics is going to be doing a lot of work on this, but the initiative should have set up the core foundations of what this game is. So the bigger question is if you trust the initiative or not. Batman Forever. Hello, Benji Boy. Hope you're doing good. I was wondering, do you believe the rumors that suggest we won't get a PlayStation event until February of 2022? Isn't that a huge gap of silence? I believe that, yeah. I would not expect any type of major PlayStation show until next year. That definitely makes sense to me. Not even a state of play. I would not even expect a state of play until next year. And a couple real, I think, kind of obvious reasons for that are things that make sense. One, I think you're definitely going to see Sony announce something at the Game Awards. So what that's going to be, I don't know. But here's the thing. The Game Awards has become an enormous platform for reveals. I mean, huge. The Game Awards pulls in such big numbers nowadays. Kind of crazy to me if you're a big publisher and you don't show something there. So I expect you're going to get something PlayStation related at the Game Awards. So there's one announcement there, so you at least don't have as huge of a wait. You're going to see something at the Game Awards more than likely. And then on top of that, they don't have any first-party releases. Like, there's nothing first-party coming this year, really. So all of that got pushed to next year. So there's no real reason to have, like, a state of play focus on an individual game either, because there's nothing coming out. So lots of third-party stuff. But from first-party, you're waiting until 2022. So, yeah, it makes definite sense to me. I don't know if it's going to be February. I don't know if it's going to be March, April. Who knows what month? But it definitely makes sense to me. You won't see anything in terms of a showcase or big state of play till next year. Just they don't have the games in terms of this year. And Game Awards, right? So that makes sense to me. Miles Morales, hey there. There's a small rumor from a person on Twitter claiming that PlayStation have even more Star Wars, Marvel, and even Pixar games in development. Do you think that's possible? Well, I'm always cautious on rumors unless it comes from a very trustworthy source. So we're going to just play pretend that this person knows something. But who knows? They could not. Do I think it's possible, though, that Sony's partnering more? Yeah, definitely think so. And there's a big reason for that. Disney is kind of getting all in on games right now. Not themselves, right? Disney themselves isn't making games. But whether that's Star Wars, whether that's Marvel, it's very clear that they're licensing out lots of games. There's even a rumor now that Quantic Dream is making a Star Wars game, right? We know Ubisoft Massive is making a Star Wars game. We know EA is still making Star Wars games, even though they're not the only one, right? Of course, there's going to be a Fallen Order sequel. So clearly, and we have 2 Marvel games at Sony right now, plus Midnight Suns coming from another dev, plus Guardians of the Galaxy about to come out. So clearly, right, they are licensing like crazy. So would I be shocked that Sony has more coming? Not at all. Not at all. Seems they have a pretty tight relationship with Disney right now. Wouldn't shock me. Do I think it's like the most likely thing? I'm actually going to say no. They only have so many teams. And a lot of them are already on projects. So I would say it's not a rumor that I think is like, oh, this is probably a lock. But at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked. Wouldn't be shocked. Disney's trying to get a lot of games made for their properties. Sounds PP7. Surprised at all the more positive reception Death Stranding Director's Cut is receiving compared to 2 years ago. And what new features do you think resonate most with people who weren't on board? Sounds PP7. I think one thing that's helped, for anyone that's missed it, Death Stranding Director's Cut is reviewing better than the original release. It's going to sound funny, but I honestly think there's truth to this. I think the biggest thing that is helping it review better is people know what the game is now. Before launch, people had so much different expectations for Death Stranding, right? People were like all over the map on what they thought this game was going to actually be. I think with Director's Cut, so many people now know what it was. Like, they know what the core concept is. They know what the core gameplay loop is. Like, some of that is less surprising and probably less like not living up to your expectations kind of thing. So I think that's helped it. I always thought this game was great. It was one of my two favorite games of 2019. My two favorite games that year were Control and Death Stranding. So I was one of those that was always on board with it. But Silence PP7, I truly think the biggest thing that's helping it is that people are less like shocked by what the game actually is compared to what they expected. So I think that's really helping it. People are reviewing it now more in context of what it is over what their expectations were. Yoda Soda. Hello, do you think it is possible that this console generation will last longer because of the shortages and how powerful these consoles are? Could we look at an 8-year lifespan? Yeah, I think so. I mean, whether it's going to go to 8, I don't know, but I don't see anything less than 7. Like you mentioned, the hardware is really good right off the bat. And honestly, the bigger thing for me is that the pandemic. I think the pandemic pushed this whole console generation at least a year later anyways, right? So many devs haven't even gotten a game out on these consoles yet because the pandemic delayed, right? So I think no matter what, even regardless of console hardware power or anything like that, just straight up the pandemic auto extended this by a year. So then you factor in, yeah, these consoles being more powerful, plus that no way it's less than 7 years in my opinion. And yeah, we could definitely see an 8-year lifespan. And on top of that, I fully expect mid-gen console refreshes too. So I mean, I absolutely expect a PlayStation 5 Pro and an Xbox Series, you know, who knows. But mid-gen console refreshes, yep. And also minimum of 7 and possibly an 8-year gen, yeah. Like I said, we're basically a year into this cycle right now. Like, we're pretty close. We're basically already 10 months in. And a lot of studios still aren't going to have their first game on the console until next year. So that pandemic really screwed with things. Venom Harness. Apparently Tencent was responsible for canceling the Lord of the Rings MMO, and they're looking to cease development at Leu. I feel that's alarming, and Tencent shouldn't buy more studios. How about you? Tencent is a company that I am somewhat nervous about. Mostly because they don't have a ton of experience in developing like a Western style AAA studios games kind of thing. And we know Tencent is getting more into that business, right? In the future, they want to start having more games on consoles. They want to have more of these AAA titles. So any company that's just going to come in with a lot of power like Tencent does and start that's not already ingrained in this industry in that aspect. Now, as we know, Tencent is massive, right? Like literally like one of the biggest gaming companies on the entire planet. But it's more mobile and PC and things like that, less so like the traditional console and AAA environment that we think of. So, you know, I'd be a little bit worried just to see how they're going to handle all of this, if they're going to be a good player in this space for that kind of thing. I think it's a big unknown right now. I'm not going to declare Tencent as this like big evil company and they're going to mess everything up. I'm also not going to praise them either. We need to see how they go about things, right? So I think we don't know the full story yet on how that's going to go. But yeah, I think it's okay to be cautious about it because, like I said, they don't really have a history of doing this kind of thing and they're trying to get more involved in it. So we're just going to have to see. Hammersley Ford, is it just me, or does this Halo flight look much better than the last one? I absolutely love the art style too. I think it looks a bit better, maybe. I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of people say that they think that this flight looks way better than last time. I thought it already looked really good last time, so I think it might look slightly more polished. It is a new build, right? This is a further in development build than the last tech test was. I'm not Digital Foundry. I'm not the kind of guy that can just look at something and instantly know, oh, this looks so much better than this aspect. And look at these textures and lighting. I think it's possible it looks slightly better. Digital Foundry could probably speak to that more. But in terms of the art style, I agree. They nailed it, dude. They nailed it. And this is from someone that kind of criticizes Halo 4 and 5 in terms of like, in a lot of ways, those games didn't feel like Halo. Like they did, but you know, they tried to do their own thing with like the Prometheans and things like that. And it just didn't have that true Halo feel in a lot of ways for a lot of people. Dude, Infinite to me seems like the perfect, in terms of art style. We're not getting into like textures and all this kind of stuff. Infinite does feel like the perfect evolution of that classic Halo art style from Halo 1, 2, and 3 brought into the modern times and still do its own twist, right? It's not just a carbon copy. But yeah, they nailed the art style. Like you look at Infinite and you're like, yeah, that looks like Halo. And I think that's a good thing after 4 and 5 were really controversial in that department. So yeah, they nailed it. They freaking nailed the art style. No doubt. King Lizard. So I was wondering, do you think E3 next year will have a lot more bombshell announcements than what we've seen this year? Or is E3 likely dead with the help of the pandemic and devs/pubs will have their own events instead? Good question, King Lizard. I've said this before. I don't think you'll ever see PlayStation back at E3 ever again. Like ever. Don't think that's ever going to happen again. Sony feels they don't need them. So I would not expect PlayStation ever back at E3. However, I do think next year in terms of overall, right? Just overall next year, whether that's E3, whether that's showcases, etc. I do think you're going to see more big announcements next year than you saw this year. Again, we're still dealing with pandemic impact even right now, right? There's still games that probably would have been announced or shown in some capacity that still aren't because so much development time got impacted. We are seeing things improving now, so I think once you get to next year, a lot more teams can show and announce games. So King Lizard, overall, I expect 2022 to be a lot bigger year for announcements than 2021. Yeah, yep. Whether that's at E3 or at, pubs doing their own thing, it should be a big year. Yeah, 2022 should be huge, huge. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Grand Theft Auto announced next year, to be honest. Would not shock me at all. That ain't coming out next year. It definitely is not coming out in 2022, but I wouldn't be shocked if they announce it. I would not be surprised if they announce it. Sounds PP7. What do you see Aspyr's long-term pipeline looking like after Knights of the Old Republic? Do you see them going straight into Knights of the Old Republic 2, a new Star Wars RPG, or could they remake another classic game like Republic Commando? Sounds PP7, it all depends on how big Knights of the Old Republic remake is. If this game is like beloved, like if they nail it, they do an amazing job remaking it, and it's a huge success financially, I think they probably go straight into Knights of the Old Republic 2, right? I think they probably remake that as well, or some sort of Knights of the Old Republic game. I think the main purpose of remaking this, and I could be totally wrong, but I think the main reason is they're trying to bring this IP back in a bigger way, right? Not just for one game. Those first two RPGs were so beloved. I think the core concept here is, yeah, let's nail this first game, and let's make more Knights of the Old Republic. So whether that's going to be a remake of the second game, if they make their own brand new, it's still called Knights of the Old Republic, but it's Knights of the Old Republic whatever. It's a brand new game set in that time period, in that universe. I think you get some sort of another Knights of the Old Republic game. It just depends, though. This game could be met really poorly critically. It could not sell well, and then who knows. But if it's successful, I think that they move on to more Knights of the Old Republic next. I think we just had a super chat. Let me hit that super chat. Benji with a 10. Thank you so much, Benji. Thank you so much. I think it's your second super chat. Benji, do you think Nintendo 64 games on Nintendo Switch Online means Nintendo gives up on mini consoles? Ooh, this is a good question. Oh, that's a good question, Benji. Is a higher service more profitable than an N64 Mini? This is a great question I did not think about. Do you expect more Nintendo Switch Online service brackets with new added consoles? Wow, Benji, that is a fascinating question. Especially when you factor in that Nintendo is also making controllers for this, right? So yeah, it's hard to think that you'll ever see an N64 Mini whenever they have N64 now on the online. Plus, you can buy that 64 controller and play it. Like, what's really the purpose of an N64 Mini at that point, right? Benji, great question. And I think you could be onto something. Yeah, you might not see a mini console from them after this. It could be that they just do the NES and the SNES like they did and kind of just stick to the online now. I had not thought about it, but I think you're right. I think you're right. And it's a big play to increase those subscription services, right? Because here's the thing, Benji. The overall question, right? If they can get a bigger chunk of subscribers to Nintendo Online from this, would it be more profitable for them than selling those consoles? For sure, right? Keep in mind, NES Mini and SNES Mini were both pretty limited run devices. And also, with Nintendo Switch Online, essentially, when you get subs to that, it's basically pure profit. Now, keep in mind, of course, there's things like server costs, etc., etc. But you're not shipping a actual physical product, right? That's just straight up digital revenue that's coming in on a recurring basis. So financially, if they convert a lot of people into getting online subscriptions strictly from this, yeah, it could be way more profitable. Yep, it could be way more profitable than those consoles were. So I had not thought about it, but that's a great question, and I think you're onto something there. Yeah, we might not see it. Yeah, we truly might not see an N64 Mini or any of those. And will they do more? Yeah, I mean, if they did GameCube, how hype would that be, right? So I could see it. Yeah, I could see more brackets, more consoles added in the future. Whether that's, who knows, maybe they save GameCube for Switch 2 or whatever. But yeah, I could see it. Great question. And I think you're onto something there. The Deadly 8. What's your thoughts on Crystal Dynamics times the initiative? We've talked about this a lot, so let's see if there's something new here. This partnership has never been done before. Why did Square Enix and Crystal agree to do first party? Could we see more partnerships if successful? Well, like I mentioned earlier, Deadly 8, it's not completely unheard of. Bandai Namco, for example, made Smash Bros. A lot of people forget that. Nintendo didn't make that game. I mean, they helped with it, sure, and it's their IP, but it's a Bandai Namco game, right? And same thing with Halo Wars 2, right? That was made by a Sega company. So it's not super unheard of. Kind of like I mentioned earlier, the thing that makes it more uncommon is that it looks like a true co-development, like two studios fully in on this game together. That's the part that makes it like, oh yeah, this isn't super common, not super common. And like I mentioned earlier, I think the main thing is that, honestly, it makes me think Square Enix truly didn't have something for Crystal Dynamics to work on next. I think they were like, I guess Tomb Raider is still on ice, and clearly there wasn't plans for an Avengers follow-up after what happened with Avengers 1. So my guess is the reason Square Enix agreed to this is probably they were like, I don't know what we were going to do with this studio anyways. So, I think that's truly it in terms of Crystal Dynamics side. Not talking about from the way Xbox and the Initiative see this, but from Square Enix's side. They probably got a good deal out of it. And it gives work for a studio that they might not have known what they were going to do with next. Cal Borchardt, hey Benji, I don't think the Initiative and Crystal Dynamics thing is similar to other support situations like the internet wants to bring up. Yep, I agree. We talked about this. It's definitely a little different than normal. The announcement and timing is interesting. P.S. Thanks for stopping by on Sacred Symbols. That was awesome to be on there. Like I said, the vast bulk of the feedback I've gotten has been extremely positive, like overwhelmingly positive. So there was a few mean comments. You're always going to get a few mean comments if you're a public figure, right? Like if you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitter, you're going to get some mean people. But like I would say 98, like that high, like 98% of the feedback I got for that episode was very positive. So thanks everybody. And yeah, I think we've talked about the initiative stuff a bunch. We do have some super chats, or at least one. Let me hit that super chat. Frostbite Slash here with a 5. Thank you so much, Frostbite. That's your second one. What are your thoughts on Kena? Oh, I love it. Love it. Or Kena. I think it's actually Kena now that I'm playing it. What do you think is next for Amber Lab? Another indie or larger scope game. Studio is filled with passion and talent. So, okay, let me get on I praise Kena or Kena. I'm pretty sure in the game they pronounce it Kena, which is a little weirder sounding than Kena, but I mean, if that's the correct pronunciation, it's the correct pronunciation. But I literally love this game. Love it. So I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but I'm pretty darn far into it. I haven't beat it yet, but I'm deep into the game. And it is incredible in my opinion. You know, here's the interesting thing, right? Reviews are just someone's opinion. So I never criticize reviews, right? You never see me on Twitter ever. I don't think I've ever sent a tweet out that's been like, oh, why is this publication giving this game a low score? Because here's the thing. At the end of the day, every single review, whether it's from the biggest publication in the world, if it's from IGN, or whether it's from a random Twitter person with 5 followers, it's just an opinion. Like, that's literally all it is. Now, of course, you put weight behind a publication because, hey, this is what you get paid to do. This is your platform. But it's just an opinion. So if someone really dislikes a game that I like, I'm not going to criticize them for it because, hey, that's your opinion of the game. I will say, though, while I'm playing this game, it is one of those that's like so hard for my head to wrap around a low score on. Clearly, someone just sees the game differently than me, but it is one of those I'm like, how is it possible to give this less than an 8 out of 10? Like, and again, it is, right? Everyone feels something completely different when they play a game. But for me, man, this game is an easy 9. As high as a 9.5 maybe. I don't think I would give it a perfect 10, but man, is it good. Wow, visually absolutely spectacular. I mean, I think it's the most impressed I've ever been by an indie game. And also, I would say it's like one of the most impressed I've ever been by a studio's first game ever. That's another thing people need to keep in mind. This isn't just an indie game. This is literally the first game the studio has ever made. They've never made a game before this. So to accomplish what they did in this very first game, I am blown away. Ember Lab is incredibly talented. There is just zero question about it. So what's next for them? I haven't beat the game, so I don't know how it ends. I absolutely think you go straight into a sequel. No sales numbers have come out yet. I have a feeling this is going to be a smashing sales success, especially for the budget. And overall, the vast bulk of what I'm seeing, people love the game. So I think it's a big mistake if you don't make a sequel, to be honest. I think a sequel with all the learning lessons they had from the first game, plus probably a bigger budget. I would think no matter what, their next game gets budgeted more than this one, whether that's from Sony investing in them. And keep in mind, I'm not saying straight up acquisition. Maybe Ember Lab wants to remain independent, but Sony can still fund games even if they don't own them. That happens all the time. I mean, you think Sony just got Final Fantasy 16 for free? No, they gave Square Enix a bunch of money. So whether that's going to be, hey, Sony comes in and they're like, listen, this game was a big success on PlayStation. We want a sequel. Here's a bigger budget to help make the next one. Plus, like I said, all those learning lessons from their first game, the next one could be seriously impressive. So that's my take. I think that they go straight into a sequel. That's my opinion. Plus, people love the design of Kena. I think she could become a big mascot character. Yeah, you follow this up. You follow this up for sure. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see Ember Lab do new IPs and do all kinds of stuff in the future. But in this case, straight to sequel. Straight to sequel. But yeah, loving it. Loving it. One of my favorite games of the year. This last few weeks has been ridiculous for me on my games of the year list. Like, you go through the first all the way until September, and I had like 4 games that were going to be in my top 10, right? I was like, oh yeah, there's, you go through like 8 months of the year, and there's like 4 games that kind of stand out to me. literally in September, Tales of Arise is absolutely going to be in my top 10. Kena is going to be in my top 10. I haven't played Deathloop yet, but it's probably going to make it if it's as good as everyone's saying it is. And Life is Strange True Colors is going to be in my top 10. So it's like, for me, September was stacked on games. Stacked. All right. Chris is saying, Benji, let's freaking go. Let's go, Chris. I hope you're hyped. Thanks for being in the stream. Hope you're all having fun. Zinfamous. Hey, Benji, got an MMA question for you. I love MMA questions. I love them. Don't worry. As I always say, if you're just here for the video game talk, don't worry. I get through MMA questions quick, but I love combat sports. Love them. Who do you have in Volk versus Ortega, Shevchenko versus Murphy, and Lawler versus Diaz in the big 3 fights tomorrow night? First of all, an amazing card. This to me is like really a hardcore card, right? It doesn't have the Conor McGregors on it. It doesn't have, you know, maybe some of the John Joneses, like some of the fighters that are kind of like mainstream. Don't get me wrong, Nick Diaz is a huge star, but he's like that hardcore star. He's hit mainstream, but the hardcore love Nick Diaz, right? You look at like Volk versus Ortega, and that to me again is like, are either one of those guys these huge commercial stars? Not necessarily, but you look on paper and that's a freaking great fight. Like both dudes are extremely talented. And Shevchenko, again, you're looking at like, in my opinion, personal opinion, I think Shevchenko is the best fighter in all of women's MMA of all time. And I know people are going to get upset about that if you watch MMA and you love Amanda Nunes. Totally get it. Amanda beat her twice, but I thought Shevchenko won that second fight, first of all. And also, Amanda is a lot bigger, right? Shevchenko was going, like, fighting a bigger opponent. In terms of just raw, pure technique, pure skill, I think Shevchenko is the most skilled woman to ever fight in MMA. So, who do I got winning? Who do I got? I'm going to go Volkanovski over Ortega. Ortega is super dangerous. And I think Ortega probably has the better odds of finishing the fight. If this fight goes to a finish, I would feel more confident Ortega probably gets the finish than Volkanovski. However, I just think Volk is so technical and is good at so many things, and his trickery is really good. I see Volk getting a decision. That's kind of how I feel. I think it's going to be a good fight, but I think Volkanovski by decision. But if this goes to finish, it wouldn't shock me if Ortega gets him, especially if it's on the ground. Shevchenko versus Murphy. I'm sorry, Murphy seems like a really awesome person and super tough, but Shevchenko, I think, is just going to annihilate her. I've got Shevchenko by finish, and yes, Murphy's never been finished, but I think Shevchenko does it. And then Lawler versus Diaz. This is like the most unknown. It's literally a coin flip, like literally in the betting odds, because we don't know what Nick Diaz we're going to get. If this Nick Diaz looks anything like he was at his best, I would pick Diaz. And I'm still going to go Nick Diaz, but I have no confidence in it. Lawler has been more active than Nick has, but Lawler also, I think his body's pretty worn down. He's been in a lot of wars, and so's Nick, but Nick has had a lot of time off to rest. I'm going to pick Diaz, but I have zero confidence in it. Zero. So those are my picks. Volkanovski, Shevchenko, and Diaz. Luis Carlos saying, Bayonetta, finally. I know, right? That game looked like it was vaporware, but it's not. Bayonetta is real. I thought it looked good. Some people did not like the trailer. I would say the biggest thing that I thought was weird about the trailer was how much it focused on like the big fights. Like if you watch the trailer, it like had the big giant fights where you were like kind of controlling to the side and they were like fighting. I thought they spent too much time on that. And also we didn't see that many locations. It was kind of focused on one sort of thing. So it wasn't like a 10 out of 10 trailer, but I wasn't as negative on it as some people were. And keep in mind, this game's not out until 2022. We don't know when, right? That could be late in the year. So there's still a lot of time to work on this game. So I'm excited for it. Yeah, I'm excited. Miles Morales, do you think Insomniac could develop a fully fledged Spider-Man co-op game since they're working on a multiplayer project? Or could it be online component for Spider-Man 2? I don't know if that's going to be Spider-Man 2. I don't know if it's going to be its own game. But I do think it would be a mistake if they never make some sort of co-op, right? Where you can play as Peter and Miles together. Like, that would be hype. So I think it'd be a mistake if you never do that. I do think it's going to happen, but I don't know if that's going to be in Spider-Man 2 or if that's going to be in its own thing. We know that they've said Spider-Man 2 is like a fully single-player game. That doesn't mean, though, that there's not some sort of multiplayer in Spider-Man 2. It just means, like, the main game, you can play it completely solo, you know, all of that. But at some point, whether that's Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, because keep in mind, there's going to be another Spider-Man game after 2. Yeah, you got to do co-op eventually, right? Especially when you have two Spider-Men like that. Like, you got Peter and you got Miles. It's got to happen eventually. But it's probably also really difficult to design. Those characters are so agile. They swing all through the city. Like, I bet that is a freaking giant challenge. But if anyone can pull it off, it's going to be Insomniac. Another super chat here from Frostbite. Holy cow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Frostbite. I think that's your third super chat. Holy cow, thank you, Frostbite. $10 here from, or 10 from Frostbite. The Last of Us Day is this Sunday. Do you think we'll see a teaser for Factions, The Last of Us remake? Oh man, this is a good question. Or the TV show. During your stream of The Last of Us Instagram page that's verified with one hidden post went live. Ooh, man, I'll tell you what, you know, I mentioned this, I think in the last chat or the chat before, like the game I was most surprised was not at the PlayStation Showcase, was Factions 2. I thought that was a lock. I'm still right now, you know, weeks later, shocked that game was not there. We know it's been in development for years. And we also know that it's such a big project. Apparently, Sony Bend is co-developing it, too, with Naughty Dog, at least according to Jason Schreier's report. And Jason's about as reliable as anyone in the industry. And he, in his report, said Bend is actually helping co-develop this. So you have Naughty Dog and Bend on it, and it's been in development for years. I was shocked that game was not at the showcase. I didn't expect it to come out this year, but I thought they would have shown it. So I wouldn't be actually shocked if it is teased at The Last of Us Day. Just because I think this game can't be that far away, right? Like, it's got to be next year. If it's really not until 2023, that is a huge surprise to me. That would be, you know, quite a whiles after The Last of Us 1 came out. And this is a multiplayer game, right? Not like a big cinematic single-player experience. So it's possible. It's possible. The TV show probably is too early for a tease unless it's like a very minor tease because that's still filming. They haven't even wrapped filming on that yet. So they could tease the TV show, but it'd be like a very, keep in mind when I say if it was going to be a tease, we're not even talking like a trailer. We're talking like maybe a 1 minute kind of thing. Possible, but I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no on the TV show, but possible. And the remake. Again, possible, but I'd say if we get any of them, I would think it's a teaser for Factions, but who knows? Who knows? I think they'll tease something, though. Something. Yeah, I think so. I think so. All right. Super chats are cleared again. We still got time. So let me blast some more questions. SPBB is just making a good point here, and so is Infinity Doc, so I'm going to read these. The initiative's MO is remaining small and contracting out games they handle at the high level. They have connections to Crystal Dynamics, and Crystal Dynamics just came off a financial disaster. Xbox did this with Relic on Age of Empires 4 alongside World's Edge, and then Infinity Doc mentions, like how I did earlier, Halo Wars 2 was Creative Assembly, Age of Empire 4 was Relic, both owned by Sega. So you kind of see, this isn't like super unheard of, not at all. The thing that makes it, you know, like I mentioned, it's just a little different, is that it seems like a full-on 2-studio co-development. But not unheard of, not unheard of. Again, I wouldn't declare doom for this game just because of this. I'm seeing some kind of wild reactions like, oh man, this must mean the initiative is like, you know, doing a terrible job or something. I don't know. It is kind of somewhat weird. Initiative's been around for 3 years and we've really still seen almost nothing out of them. But they probably got kind of screwed by founding a new studio like right when a pandemic began. I know it started in 2018, but it takes some time to build a studio, and then you had the pandemic literally hit right after, so that probably didn't help things. But I wouldn't be worried yet. I would say this game is probably very far away though, right? Very far. Very far. 2023 at the earliest. I would not be surprised if it's 2024. Oh, interesting. Nick kills myths. My guess about the initiative making this move has more to do with gaining access to proprietary code solutions for character movement or some systems they are struggling with. That's a very interesting point, Nick. Or Nick's kills myths. Wouldn't doubt it. Wouldn't doubt it. That is very interesting. Benji, could Microsoft be making a move on Crystal Dynamics? Maybe the studio hasn't been that profitable for Square Enix. It's a good question. I've wondered for a while if Square Enix is going to try and sell off their Western studios because they haven't been successful with them. I don't know that Microsoft's trying to buy Crystal Dynamics, but I also wouldn't be shocked, just to be blunt with you. Square Enix has like actually fully figured out their Japanese sided development. Like they're on a great run right now in terms of their Japanese teams. Their Western teams just still have felt like they haven't really hit. So I actually would not be shocked if Square Enix, if they got a really good offer, sold their Western studios. To be perfectly honest, would not surprise me. But is that like currently happening? I don't know. I don't know. It's a hard question to answer. Oh, this is a nice comment from the Biglow25. You had the most normal / sensible take than some people I've seen on Twitter. Well, Biglow, I always try to think through what I post and what I talk about on YouTube, right? I try to have very, very few hot takes, right? Now, am I going to have a hot take sometimes? Yeah, everybody does. But any of my content, and I think that's one reason why I've found a lot of success on Twitter, is that people know, whether they agree with me or not, I think people know I'm never trying to like purposely mislead anyone. And I'm also not trying to like stir flames. I'm not trying to be controversial. Even if I'm wrong on something, one thing I think that's really helped my platform is that people know like I'm really trying to give you like my best thoughts on something. And so thank you. Thanks. I do try to put a lot of thought into what I post publicly, at least, right? 1030 Media Group. Hey, Benji, quick question. Do you think the move by Crystal Dynamics kind of puts them in the driver's seat for Perfect Dark? I mean, they didn't ask to do this game, and at any point, they can leave. Well, kind of like I mentioned earlier, I do think that Crystal Dynamics is going to be pulling a lot more weight than a traditional outsourcing studio. Like I said, this is a massive developer. Like, they're not small. Crystal Dynamics is a huge team with a ton of experience, and they're bigger than the core team that actually was like founded to create this game. So Are they in the driver's seat? I would say no, because this is Microsoft's IP. Like, they own the IP. And the initiative was still the studio that's, I think, laid down all the core foundations. But does it mean like Crystal Dynamics is just going to kind of like go along with whatever and have no say in anything? That to me seems highly doubtful. With a studio as big as that, they're going to definitely have some weight behind this as well. So, yeah, more than a traditional outsourcing studio in terms of say. But I don't think at the end of the day they're going to make all the decisions. That's going to be Microsoft and the initiative. And the Crystal Dynamics team is probably just going to work super heavily with them in a like cooperative way. All right, let's see. What questions do we have left? Vas, do you see From Software making another Sony exclusive, or will From Software be multi-platform from now? It just depends on if Sony gives them money. If Sony gives From a lot of money for an exclusive, I do think they would be willing to do it. However, I don't think you will ever see From just on their own volition, just kind of like, hey, we're just going to make an exclusive for you. And keep in mind that pretty much never happens. There's always money exchange, but a lot of studios are like, might be like fully on board. Like, yeah, we really would love to make an exclusive game for you. You know, let's work out a deal. I don't think From is actually in that position. I think From likes being fully multi-platform. And I think it's one of those, hey, if Sony comes at you with an offer you can't refuse, then you do an exclusive. But it's got to be like Sony really investing, like Sony coming hard, being like, we want that exclusive game. We're going to give you an amazing deal on it. We're going to give you a ton of freaking money. Let's make this happen. It's got to be a very attractive offer. Otherwise, From is all in on being multi-platform. So again, I would say not impossible. You very well could see it, but PlayStation's going to have to make a really good offer. DB will rise. Benji, this may be a random question, but since you love MMA so much, I thought I'd ask, have you ever played UFC Undisputed 3 on PS3/360? Yes, I've played every UFC game that's ever released. Undisputed 1, 2, 3. I don't remember. Was there an Undisputed 4? And then I've played every one of the EA UFC games as well. So yeah, I play them all. It's the only like sports game I play, but it's a fighter, so it's not really a sports game, but kind of. That and Fight Night. Those are the only two I really play. And racing games. Yes, Ed says, sorry, man. I've got like some stuff in my throat. Benji, I can't believe you think Xbox was the worst regarding presentations. It's okay. Everybody has different opinions. Xbox gave us id at Xbox 2 shows, but I didn't think they were good. E3 and post E3 2 shows. Gamescom and now Tokyo Game Show next week. The spot that I'm different with you here on Yes Ed, and there's nothing wrong with you thinking Xbox was the best, so I want to be very clear on that. I don't think most of those shows were good. I thought the Xbox E3 and post E3 shows were excellent. I have thought the ID at Xbox shows are way too long. Those streams are like freaking hours. And I don't like the way that they were presented. So, you know, I mean, hey, everyone's going to have a totally different opinion. And I actually have a lot of people that I think I have good relationships that work at Xbox. So, and who knows, some of them could even be watching this stream. And whenever I say that, I don't mean that to be mean. I don't mean that to be negative or anything like that. I do agree. I thought that the E3 show and their post show hosted by Paris, I thought that was a freaking home run. I loved that presentation. And Gamescom, though, I also didn't think that the Gamescom stream was that good. And I don't think that was, I think Paris hosted Gamescom as well. And that wasn't Paris's fault. I just thought the content wasn't really there for a Gamescom stream like that. So, Nintendo and Sony kind of save it up, right? They don't spam out like a bunch. They kind of wait until they have like stuff to show. So, you know, that's just my opinion on it. It's not me hating on Xbox. I freaking love Xbox. I love PlayStation. We're all going to have different opinions, but I thought most of those Xbox streams and shows just weren't that good. But E3 was amazing, so I'm not knocking their E3 at all. Nick's Kills Miss. My question is outside the most recent news cycle. As one Alan Wake fan to another, oh yeah. Are you stoked for Alan Wake 2 utilizing modern technology, RTX, haptics, 3D audio, and future horror titles? Thoughts? Yeah, Alan Wake 2 is going to be amazing. So for anyone that is unaware that Alan Wake 2 is a thing, it's a thing. And basically they just spoiled it by announcing this. Now, Alan Wake 2 already leaked. So we have known, people that follow leaks have known that Alan Wake 2 is coming for a while. But here's the way you literally know that Alan Wake 2 is coming, and it's from Remedy themselves now. Remedy has said, ever since the beginning, that the deal they struck with Epic was for 2 games, and those games were the same IP. Guess what the first game is? Alan Wake Remastered. So that basically tells you the second game is Alan Wake 2. Like, literally. They just straight up told you by announcing this, hey, Alan Wake 2 is coming, and I bet you that remaster is going to have some kind of tease. I bet you. Because they've kind of hinted there might be some more lore stuff to find. So, yeah, I mean, my hype for Alan Wake 2 is, like, literally as high as any game, period, on the entire market. Alan Wake 1 is one of my favorite games of all time. It does not have the best gameplay of all time. I'm going to warn you, if you're watching this stream, you're planning on getting Alan Wake, and you never played it originally, it does not have the best gameplay of all time. But it has an amazing story, amazing atmosphere, and it's really unlike any game out there. Alan Wake is it is like one of the very few games, it's the way I always describe it, it truly feels like you're playing a Stephen King novel. So it feels really unique in that regard. And Alan Wake 2, I mean, Control, I think, looks amazing. That game is, like, visually stunning on a high-end PC or on PlayStation 5 or Series X. So Alan Wake 2 is going to be incredible. Yeah, incredible. Can be. PS5 just released a lot of exclusive games this month and now have no big games for the holiday. Should Sony have pushed Death Stranding or Kena to October/November to spread things out? I don't think it's that big of a deal because third party is probably going to carry this holiday. I would say if we were in a situation where like the PlayStation was kind of not selling out instantaneously, or you know, we didn't have some really big third-party games, it might be a bigger deal. But I think this early in the life cycle, and with PlayStation 5 literally selling out constantly, they don't really need anything to like boost holiday sales. It's going to be a sellout no matter what. So this particular year, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Once we get deeper in the cycle and, you know, you kind of want to spike some hardware sales in certain months, then it becomes a little more important. But can be, I know it is a lot. They released a lot, right? We just really had Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut like last month, and then we had Kena, and then we have Death Stranding Director's Cut, like all in a really short window. Third party is going to carry it, and the console's still selling out. So less of a big deal in this year in particular. Truth Teller saying, Benji, I don't agree with David Jaffe. The team up between the Initiative and Crystal Dynamics is awesome, and we all know there isn't a single first-party studio that can handle a AAA themselves. I haven't seen what David Jaffe's take is, so I can't speak to it. I can't speak to what David said. But everyone's going to have different opinions, right? But I don't think this spells doom. No, I don't think so. Now, does this also mean that I'm telling you Perfect Dark's going to be a 10 out of 10 game? I'm also not telling you that. We just don't really know, right? We just don't have enough information. But we'll have to see. Crystal Dynamics is super talented, regardless of how recent projects have turned out or not. So we'll have to see. We just don't have enough info yet. I think we just had a super chat coming in here at the end. Haha, JCat, what is up? JCat just got here with a 2 super chat. Yo, shout outs for the Demon Slayer shirt. Yeah, heck yeah. Oh yeah, rocking that Demon Slayer, baby. Thanks for being here, JCat, and thanks for the super chat. Highlander with a 5 super chat. Benji, I love horror-based games. Think a Stephen King book makes a good horror game. Ooh, interesting. We've seen a lot of Stephen King novels turned into movies or TV shows, but we have never had that as a game, right? Like, or at least not in a big AAA way. We haven't had, I don't know if there's been some sort of like random, like side indie thing or AA game that was made off a Stephen King novel, but we've never seen that in a big AAA way. And we don't really see that with books in general, which is kind of an interesting thing. You see a lot of book series turned into movies, turned into TV shows. Pretty rare you see that in the gaming industry. So that's actually a great question, Highlander. I think you could. I think you could take a Stephen King book and make it into a good horror game. Yeah, I definitely think so. Now, of course, you would have to stray a bit from the source material to pull off a full-on game. But I think you could see it. I don't think it's impossible. And if you haven't played Alan Wake, play Alan Wake. That's the closest thing you'll get right now. Closest thing. I hope that remaster does really well for them. All right, I'm going to hit a few more questions, and then we're going to bounce. I'm going to just hit a few more. We're going to have some speed questions here. I actually think I got through most of them today anyway, so I'm probably going to go for about 5, maybe 10 more minutes, and we're going to bounce. Just a few more questions, and we're out. David Semeyer, Benji, what do you think about the huge wave of numbers from the PlayStation Showcase? Well, yeah, we had some massive trailers in terms of metrics. Sony, they have just like a very passionate following. And I mean that in a good way, right? They have a very passionate base. And that base hypes their games, watches trailers like crazy. And keep in mind, 2 of the games that were shown here are sequels to games that are 20 million sellers, right? Basically. We know Spider-Man was, and God of War's got to be 20 million by now, probably. I forgot if there was an official announcement of 20 million for God of War. I don't think there was, but I'd be shocked if it's not at 20 million, or at least very close. I'd say it's got to be close, at least. So, regardless, 15 plus, I would think for sure. So, the 2 of the trailers were sequels to massive games. So, that alone guarantees it. Then you have the PlayStation base, which is very passionate, and you have PlayStation that has a massive install base. So yeah, very impressive metrics. Very impressive. Chris Jenkins, are you hyped for Dune box office predictions? I am. I never read the Dune books. I've actually heard the books are kind of boring, and I know that's blasphemy to some people, and I've heard some people love it. But one thing I have heard is some people think it's really boring. But I think the movie has a ton of talent in it, and it looks amazing. So I am hyped to see the movie. One thing I would say is I'm very disappointed that the U.S. has to wait so freaking long for this movie. Y'all, we don't get it until October, like the end of October, and it's already out in a lot of markets. That is like... And they did it because of HBO Max. Like, that's literally why. Because the U.S. has HBO Max, and they're afraid that people will instantly upload a 4K, illegal upload of the movie, and that will... cannibalize the box office. So from a sales side, I get it, but dude, it sucks. Like, we don't get this movie till the end of October. But I'm hyped for it. It's doing very well in the markets it's released in. I expect the US to be softer in terms of proportion than it's doing in like Europe. It's a massive success in Europe, actually. So less than we're seeing over there, but I could see it being the biggest of the HBO Max movies domestic. Yeah. Right now, the leader is Godzilla vs. Kong. And I could see this being bigger than Godzilla vs. Kong, to be honest with you. So, yeah. The sales for Bayonetta 3, not super high. Not super high. For me, if Bayonetta 3 can get over 1 million, that's a big success. So, Bayonetta is just not a big IP. It's just not. The hardcore love it. It has a super passionate, diehard fan base. But I'm not going to go out there and predict Bayonetta 3 is going to sell 5 million units, right? If it can get to 1 million, I would consider that big success. Astral Chain hit 1 million, right? That was another platinum game that was on Switch. So that to me is like my success milestone. I don't know what Nintendo or Platinum have budgeted this at, but if I was them, that would be like my definitely this game's a success. 1 million. Hopefully that's how they budgeted it. Hopefully they didn't go into this thinking this game's got to sell 3 million units, because it's really unlikely. But if it can pull off 1 million like Astral Chain, definite success, in my opinion. All right, couple more and we're out. Oh, Gaming Addict, what up? I think you misunderstood this. Gaming Addict, I think you completely misunderstood this. So I'm confused. Did you just admit to making sure you post a certain way? No. Even if it goes against who you are? No. Just to gain follows? No. No disrespect, just curious what you mean. No. So anyone that knows me, I'm a very analytical person. It's literally what I am about everything. In fact, like if you talk to somebody that like personally knows me, they might think I'm kind of cold. And I don't mean that in terms of like I'm mean. I am a very focused. I'm not a passionate person in terms of emotions at all. And I think it's a big mistake to be that way. But everyone thinks different, right? No, what I was talking about earlier is I said I put a lot of thought behind what I post, because I think the most important thing in life, in all of existence, and maybe we're getting a little metaphysical here, I think it's using your brain. I don't think it's about being super like, passionate and showing tons of emotion. And emotions are good, but a lot of times emotions cloud logic. Logic is what's important to me. So what I was saying is that like I don't post hot takes or like super emotional things because they're rarely right. Rarely, very rarely is a super emotional response or like, a super, oh my God, the sky's falling, or oh my God, this is the greatest thing in all of existence. Very rare, very, 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 very rare is that going to be the right take. Usually the right take is to use logic, is to sit down, really think through something, look at the pluses, look at the minuses. How did we get here? Why is it like this? And then that's whenever you go public with what you think about something. So, of course, everything's going to be an opinion, and sometimes my opinion is going to be wrong. But I think that is why I've had a lot of success on Twitter. It's not fashioning my takes to gain followers. Not at all. I'm saying I think people follow me because they like that I do that. It's just a byproduct. I mean, I've always been the same person. I always have posted the same. So, no, I'm saying me being that way by default, I think is what has helped my platform. There's a reason why you see a lot of fanboy stuff stall out. It does. Yeah, maybe you gain a couple thousand followers really fast from people that are also going into fanboy wars. Very rare do you see that person find tons of success, right? Get to huge numbers of followers. Not impossible. It can happen, but you're going to get a lot of people that don't agree with you, and also a lot of people that think you're just posting bad stuff. People want to read takes and analysis and things like that they think makes sense and is well thought out. So that's really what I meant. I didn't mean like, oh, I changed my opinion to gain follows. That's dumb, right? Like I would never do something like that, like literally ever. It's that I make sure before I post something, have I really thought about this? Have I really looked at it? Have I really been like, okay, but why, right? That's what I mean. That's what I mean. You got to put a lot of thought behind stuff, in my opinion. Some people feel completely different. They like to be super passionate and constantly like, I'm super hot take here. And that's okay. I'm not going to say it's wrong, but it is definitely not my process at all. Not at all. It's one reason why I'm a massive fan of Luke Thomas. Luke Thomas is an MMA guy, totally different in terms of what I cover here with games, but he's very similar. Like people will sometimes ask like what your inspiration is. It's no one in the video game industry, to be honest. Very few people in the video game industry, I think, report the way that I would look at it. Luke Thomas. Luke Thomas would be the guy. That would be my inspiration. Closest to that would probably be Jason Schreier, to be honest. Luke Thomas and Jason Schreier. All right. I think we're about to bounce. Oh, we had a super chat. 2 super chats here down at the bottom. Joseki Bayonetta 3 is hot. That's it. That's the comment with the 2 from Joseki. Yeah. I mean, hey, I'm not going to deny it, right? Am I going to say no, Bayonetta is not hot? Sorry. But yes, it looks good. Bayonetta looks good. You know what's crazy? I've never played Bayonetta 2. I need to get on that. Played Bayonetta 1, have not played 2. And yeah, I think a million for Bayonetta 3. That's the spot. And Highlander001 with a 5 super chat. How is your daughter doing? Hope her health is good and you are gaming with her. Thank you so much, Highlander. My daughter's doing great. She's in school. She's rocking, well, preschool, right? She's only 3. But she's really loving it. She's doing really well at school. And yeah, she's still a little too small for me to game with her much. But she definitely watches me game a lot, and she always is asking me about the games, but she hasn't got to that point where she can like figure out a controller yet. Plays a lot of game on tablets and phones, but hasn't gotten to that controller spot yet. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap it there because we've been going for basically an hour and a half. So we're going to wrap it there. All right, everyone, thank you so much. Thanks for all the support. As always, make sure you like the video if you haven't already. Helps the YouTube algorithm. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. We got to over 3,000, which was my main goal for a long time, so I'm super happy with that. Everything past this is just gravy. And follow me on Twitter if you don't already. I am Benji-Sales. I'm assuming you follow me on Twitter if you're here, because my Twitter's way bigger. But if you, for some reason, don't follow me on Twitter, hit me with that follow. All right, everybody. I hope you had an awesome time. I will be back next week. We do one of these streams every single week. So if this was your first time here, we're going to be back next week. And we're going to break down the sales and news of the video game industry next week as well. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great one. And I will talk to you later. Bye. Peace. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Peace. Bye-bye. 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 See ya. See ya.